So yesterday we discussed about Brit Milah, we discussed about the 3 steps. Milah, going to the Mikvah, and the bringing of the sacrifice, which is not relevant today. Now we're going to go a little bit more detail into the process. When a person comes to convert, what are the steps? When a person comes to convert, Omrim lo, they say to him, who's they?
The
Beit Din, very good. The Beit Din says, Ma ra'ita, what did you see? Shebata lidgaya, that you came to convert. Meaning, for what reason did you come here? Why do you want to be Jewish? We add to that question. Don't you know? Israel, the Jewish people, Bazman Hazeh, nowadays, Tchufim, we're downtrodden, we're disgraced, we're persecuted. Umeturafim, we're devoured. V'isurim ba'im aleim, and there's so much suffering that happens to people just because they're Jewish. What are we doing now? What
discouraging.
We're discouraging him. We're trying to.
Yeah, that's pretty standard.
Yeah, right. This is standard. Now you'll see here what you've heard in your life that you have to do this 3 times. It's not mentioned in Shulchan Aruch. Not heard of. Marana would have no idea what you're talking about if you mention pushing someone away 3 times. No, it's just not a Jewish law. It's an invention.
Oh,
it's an invention. We're trying. What are the Beit Din trying to do now? We're trying to figure out, is he sincere? So we're telling him the truth. The truth is, it's not easy to be Jewish. On a very simple level, people hate us. The whole world hates us. Why do you want to be Jewish? Now this might feel not so relevant today because it's not so difficult to be Jewish. But the world doesn't always stay the same, and if you just look not so far back in our history, this is a fact.
Yeah, 70 years ago.
Imamar Yodeani, if he says, I know. Ve'eni kidai litchaber imahem, and I'm not even worthy to join them. Mikablin oto miyad, we accept him to the Jewish faith immediately.
No questions asked.
No questions asked. You have to understand very quickly. Everything we know about conversion, we've learned, one, from people who've gone through the conversion system, or from rabbis we've heard talk about it. Never from the Shulchan Aruch. That I guarantee you. Rabbi Yosef Karo would have no idea what to do with the system that we have in place today. He never heard of it.
How did it develop?
I have some theories. It's a good question. I want to answer this question. I want to see first what is it we have to do. Meaning, let's see what Rabbi Yosef Karo demands from us, and then we'll see where the things go crazy. So the first step is this pushing away. Now, what does it mean when he says, I know the Jewish people are in this situation, and I'm not worthy of it? What is he saying? Well, he's not worthy of what? What's his answer to the Beit Din?
Not worthy to join the Jewish people.
That's what we would think. I'm not worthy to join the Jewish people. Humility.
Yeah, humility.
I'm not worthy to suffer with you.
Oh, very good. Say it.
I'm not worthy to suffer with you.
Rashi says like you. Rashi says, what is he saying? I'm not worthy to suffer with the Jewish people. Meaning, I'm not even worthy to be persecuted for being Jewish. That's an even more intense statement than the first one. It's not just saying, I know that it's bad to be Jewish, but I want to do it anyways. I'm not worthy of it. It's saying, I'm not worthy to be hunted down as a Jew in the streets by anti-Semites. The Meiri, who's a French medieval sage, he understands this to mean, I know, I accept it upon myself because the spiritual path that I'm choosing is more important than the physical state which I will have to go through. The physical experience I'll have to go through as a Jew. Meaning, I don't care because of anti-Semitism. I don't care that it's so hard to be Jewish because I know that on a spiritual level, I'm going places I would never be able to go. Now, all of these are good answers. I mean, there's no right or wrong here. We're trying to discover a person's sincerity.
Well, really, a person perceives that who they are now, they can go no further with what
they have now.
Yeah.
Very good. I mean, they need to take this next step. I must do it. Very good. That's a good point.
They know that's the next level they have to go to.
When we say mekablin oto miyad, we immediately accept him. It doesn't mean that we take him, dunk him straight in the mikvah. It means we've accepted him into this world of conversion. We are no longer doubting if he's worthy of being a convert. Now we have more steps to take. We're going to see this. We're going to see this in the next halacha.
I heard in Crown Fight a few years back, person wants to go and conversion. The question they asked me, one of the questions, do you think Rabbi is Messiah? If he says yes, he's out.
He thinks who's Messiah? Oh, Yashka? Jesus?
If he, Baba's Rabbi is Messiah, do you believe in it? The guy says yes, they won't convert him.
I wouldn't.
They're Mashiachists. I thought Chabad doesn't convert though, Rabbi.
I wouldn't. No, he's saying he wasn't in a Chabad court.
Right.
But
I wouldn't convert him either.
If he says, it's
how
out.
would he know yet?
They're telling in advance. If the question comes up, say no. If you say yes, you're out.
But isn't it true that Chabad doesn't do conversions for the most
Yes.
part?
I don't know. I'm not
The
sure.
Chabad doesn't do it.
In Europe, they do. No, I've
There's some
it's not true.
problem that stopped it.
How long ago was
Maybe in
Maybe
America.
50, 20 years back.
That's all? 20, 30 years?
It still happens in some places. There's a halacha yud bet, the 12th halacha.
I know all this things. I don't
So,
know.
I'd be
It'll
interested
take
in
an
your
hour to discuss that point.
The 12th halacha says that we don't exactly accept him. We first need to figure out, so then why did he come? I mean, what made him? We want to know his story. Did he find a book in the library? Did he meet a Jewish girl? Did he want to join a Jewish business and they won't take him unless he's Jewish? Well, what's the story here? Or did he discover, listen, this is the truth of Hashem and I need to go on that path? When we say Mekablim Tomiyad, it's like you said, we're accepting him into the process. Now, what are the next steps of conversion, halachically? Modi'im oto ikarei hadat. We notify him of the fundamental principles of our faith.
The Rambam's fundamentals?
So this is interesting. Maran doesn't mention the Rambam's faith. In Rav Peritz's circles, this is what we do. We do mention that the ger has to say Shema Yisrael, and he has to say the 13 principles of faith out loud. That's what we understand. But according to Maran, Shehu Yichud Hashem, it's the unification, the oneness of Hashem, which is Shema. That is Shema. V'isur avodah zarah, and the prohibition of worshipping idols. Notice again here it says avodat kochavim, the worshipping of stars, because the Christians are aware that Christianity is foreign worship, but they say no, but we're different, we're the chosen people, so they censored the book and changed it to idolatry as opposed to just foreign service of Hashem, meaning there is no way you can serve Hashem if Hashem is one while still adhering to another faith. There is no other faith that is compatible with Judaism. And we elaborate on this matter. I mean, this is a very important thing. Belief in Hashem and forbidden worship of idols. We tell him about some of the lighter mitzvot and some of the heavier mitzvot. What does that mean? What are light mitzvot and what are heavy mitzvot?
Well, the smaller ones like the blessing before, after going to the bathroom, or washing your hands in the morning. They're pretty simple to do. I mean, just
blessings, very good. That's one of them. I want to. In the times of the Beit Mikdash, the Rambam mentions, we tell them about the masrot, tithing of your field, the corners of the fields, the leket, shikha, pe'ah. If you know these things, if the wheat falls to the ground, you don't pick it up. All these halachot they're small halachot. Nowadays, what we would teach more is about prayer, birkat hamazon. If it's a woman, lighting Shabbat candles. If it's a man, maybe tzitzit and tefillin and prayer. Those are the lighter, the general day-to-day mitzvot that a person needs to know. So what are the heavy, intense mitzvot? What are the serious mitzvot?
Giving up your life to that name.
Okay, that's intense in general. Shabbat is a heavy one.
High holy days.
Yom Tov, the holidays in general. What else?
Building a
Fasting.
sukkah. Building a sukkah.
Okay, holidays I would put in the first category. That kind of kashrut,
That's root, yeah.
Family purity.
Yeah.
Forbidden relationships.
Yeah.
These are the big ones for Judaism. So some of the lighter mitzvot are the day-to-day things: prayer, tefillin, tzitzit, mezuzah, brachot, lighting candles, so on and so forth. And the heavier ones are Shabbat, holidays, kosher rules, family purity, forbidden relationships, so on and so forth. We then do something interesting. Modi'im oto miktzat onashim shel mitzvot. We tell him some of the consequences for those who violate the commandments. Something we normally don't do. But we pull out some of the punishments, or if you like to use that word, consequences. Onashim, for someone. What do we tell him? Before you became Jewish, you could eat whatever parts of the animals you wanted and you weren't being punished for it. Kehillat Shabbat, you drove on Shabbat, nobody would stone you. We tell them, listen, today these things are changing. If you accept to be Jewish, you're not only accepting the good side of Judaism and the happy, nice side, you're also accepting that there are consequences for inactions or for violations of Hashem's Torah mitzvot. But look what he says, Maran. Look what he says. From here I have a proof that what I told you a few months back about a certain preacher is correct. He says, Ve'en marbin alav, ve'en medakdekin alav. Says Maran, you're not allowed to speak too much about this topic. You can't scare him too much. Why are we telling him these things in the first place? What are we trying to do?
Find an even middle ground.
Well, why are we telling him about punishments? What are we
really serious?
Well, he needs to know.
Yeah, I mean, you're getting yourself into something that might be way over your head.
Yeah.
If you want to step out, now is a good time. If you want to go back, now is a good time. You don't have to do this. No one's making you do this. But if you do this, there's a whole world of things that come along with it. But says Maran, we don't do it too much. You know what Maran says? The reason we don't do it so much? So we won't scare him away. We're not trying to scare him away. We're just trying to be honest. He has to know everything. When you come and buy a car at a used car dealership, only a trickster won't tell you everything that's wrong with the car. We have to tell you everything about the car. Was it salvaged? They found it at the bottom of the lake? What happened to this car?
Full disclosure.
Full disclosure. We're giving you full disclosure of Judaism, not just the pretty, beautiful things you hear, also some of the more serious things. But we don't want to scare you away. That's not the point. The point is not to scare somebody away. Some say the reason we tell him this is so he shouldn't come to us later and say, I didn't know.
Yeah.
I didn't know. I was tricked into this. Well, we told you. Uchshem, it says Maran, but you have to balance this out. Uchshem shemodi'in oto onshan shel mitzvot, the same way you tell him about the penalties, the consequences for violating mitzvot, kach modi'in oto scharan shel mitzvot. You also must tell him about the rewards, the positive things that come to a person from observing Torah mitzvot. Umodi'in oto, you tell him sheba'asiyat mitzvot elu yizkeh l'chei olam haba. If you perform these mitzvot, you follow this Torah, you will reach the world to come. And you say, "V'she'en shum tzaddik gamur ela ba'al chokhmah shoseh mitzvot elu v'yodam." Says there cannot be a tzaddik in the world. There cannot be someone who's righteous who doesn't follow this Torah. Meaning, this Torah is the only path to righteousness.
Well, what about the righteous Gentile, giving people the Noachide?
He's following the Torah also. He's following a Torah for non-Jews. But a person can't be good and violate Hashem's word. So we're telling you are on the right path. You're on a good path. That's a good question. V'omrim lo heve yodea. It tells you should know. Sha'olam haba eino tzafun el tzadikim. The next world is reserved for the tzaddikim. And who are the tzaddikim? Hem Yisrael. This is the Jewish people that you're joining now. Meaning you are on the path of those who are going to go to Olam haba. V'zeh shetirei Yisrael b'tzar b'olam hazeh. If you see suffering to the Jewish people now, tovahi tzvuna lehem she'inam yicholim lekabel rov tova ba'olam hazeh. This is something Maran does. The Maran doesn't normally talk Jewish philosophy in his book. It's normally just law. Maran says if you see the Jewish people suffering, you should know that it's because Hashem has a reward for them that He cannot give them in this world. It's just too great to give in this world. He says Hashem doesn't want to give them reward like He does to the non-Jews in this world. So because what happens when a person has life too good? He forgets Hashem.
Yeah.
And he says it will distract us from our cause.
There's also no motivation to grow.
I mean, if everything is going well for me and everything's going, you'll see the Jewish people, we do more damage to ourselves when we're not being persecuted than when we are being persecuted. It's almost sad.
The intermarriage rates.
Yeah, intermarriage rates, the lack of unity among, somehow we all managed to die together. You never find that there was a pogrom that happened to the Jewish people and they put Reform Jews in one line, Orthodox Jews in a different line, Hasidic Jews. That didn't happen that way. They come to kill us together. So why can't we live together? We don't do so well when we're not. I can't. I'm sad to say the report of Jewish history is we're in much better behavior when we're being persecuted. So Hashem says, I don't always give goodness to the Jewish people at once because they get ruined for me. Then HaKadosh Baruch Hu mevia lehem rov puranut. Says, but there's a flip side. Hashem also doesn't bring down such terrible disasters to the Jews. Kedei shelo yovdu, in order to the yovedus, they should not be wiped out. I mean, suffering yes, but not suffering to the point where we will lose the entire Jewish people. Ela kol hagoyim kalim vehem omdim u'marichin kalim. Rather, we will always last forever. Every nation in the world can disappear, except for us. Vehem omdim, and they have to stand up, u'marichin b'davar zeh, and they elaborate, they keep talking about this as much as they can. Who are we talking to again? Who's doing all the talking here?
The non-Jews.
Who's talking here? The Bedin.
Oh, okay.
The Bedin has to say all these things, and there's no limit. Just keep talking.
In one session or over a period of time?
It's not clear. In Maran, it seems to be like it's one session, but it could be over time. And why do we elaborate on this matter? In order to make them feel precious. Understand what Maran is telling you. We have to tell the convert how good he should feel about this. My wife had a friend in seminary, 20 years older than her.
20 years older?
Older than her. Was a righteous convert to Judaism. Ended up actually being the secretary in my yeshiva. I didn't know until I once dated my wife. I took her to the yeshiva to meet Rabbi Peretz, and they knew each other. She ended up marrying somebody from my yeshiva. But she was a convert to Judaism, and she lost her entire family in the conversion process. Her entire family she lost.
What do you mean you lost?
They didn't want to talk to her anymore.
Oh, I see.
They felt that she would one up the deep end. They disowned her.
But I've seen situations where people convert, or even if they just go into the frum world where they cut off from their families, they're encouraged to cut off.
Oh, and that's on the other side. Here I'm talking about on their end, they were cut off. And she would come to my wife in her room, she would cry her eyes out. She'd say, I lost everything, and for what? Do you know how many people don't want me in the Jewish world? She's going on a date, and nobody wants to date her because she's a convert to Judaism. She wants to apply for a seminary. Nobody wants her because she's do you know what it feels like? To give up everything you have, and then in the Jewish world you're not good enough?
But you're saying that's contrary to everything here.
It is absolutely, that's what I'm telling you. The Dayan's job is to, the Chabivan, this word is not used, Maran doesn't say this about Jews anywhere in the Shulchan Aruch.
And if it doesn't work out in a case like that, we're creating, God forbid, real enemies.
Absolutely,
I hate the Jews.
It's a disgusting thing in the Jewish people. I told you yesterday, there's no room in our community, in our religion, for people who are not willing to follow Hashem's Torah by loving a convert. It doesn't happen. It doesn't sit in a person's mind that there can exist such an option. It doesn't work. Im kibel, if after all this conversation, listen, we have to tell you the light mitzvot. Prayer, brachot, tefillin, mezuzot, lighting candles, the heavier mitzvot, Shabbat, holidays, kashrut, family purity, forbidden relationships. If after all this, and the consequences, and the rewards, and how much the Jews suffer, if after all this, the conversation, I still want to sign up for this. Malin oto miyad. Says Maran, you must give him a brit milah immediately. What does immediately mean?
As soon as you can get a bit in together.
As soon as you can. As soon as you can. The reason being, the Talmud says that when a mitzvah comes to your hands, you cannot pass it over. There's someone right now who's willing to convert. He's answered the questions. He's ready. He's committed. You cannot wait. Like I told you, everything you're going to hear here is contrary to everything you've heard elsewhere. And I'm just reading from you from the Shulchan Aruch. And the Ramah doesn't argue. It's not like here I'm just quoting to you Rabbi Yosef Karo. There is no other side to this conversation.
What do you mean as soon as they answer the questions? Is that a subjective answer? Because it takes time to answer the questions.
Okay, so some would say there's at least a basic level of knowledge and learning that has to be... Okay, we agree. Of course, a person has to be educated before they... It's very hard to be a non-educated Jew. We have enough Jews like that, and it's hard. We can't create a new Jew that's not educated. But how much? How? I think about this as a process. If a person feels like they're part of a process, then they're willing to learn as long as it takes. But if they feel that throughout the process they're still constantly being rejected, so what? Why would someone want to go through that process? I'm willing to go through the process, but just tell me that you'll take me then. Tell me that there's room for me then. That's what I'm asking. That's a fair thing to ask. Why should a person through their entire conversion process feel that maybe at the end they're just going to kick them to the curb? For what reason should I study? For what? Why should I grow? And I said to take shortcuts, but the attitude can be one of warmth. A person wants to join the Jewish people. The biggest inspiration for your kids in the world is to see that there's somebody who wasn't born Jewish who wants to be Jewish.
It's a little bit like the whole thing with immigration in this country. It's like, don't let any immigrants in. But the Native Americans said, well, we let all you 300 million people in. You're all immigrants, right? So it's like we welcome people into the Jewish people, but we have Jewish people with blonde hair, with dark skin, from all over the world.
I mean,
it's almost a racist thing sometimes.
Well, Jewish
it's
people,
like
we can't be a race. We can't be. Somebody when the Ethiopian Jews started making Aliyah to Israel.
Yeah,
It's not a race.
that's not a race. No.
When the Ethiopian Jews started making Aliyah to Israel, there was a big problem with racism. I mean, the Sephardic Jews were one thing, the Yemenite Jews were another thing. Ethiopians were black.
Yeah.
And Jews are not black. That's what people had in their head. And somebody was sitting in a class of Rav Shlomo Aviner. It's a famous class of his. He said, Rabbi, but how can we accept these Ethiopians? They don't even look Jewish.
Help.
And he said, they don't look Jewish. He said, you don't look Jewish.
Yeah, you don't know.
What do you mean I don't look Jewish? They pulled out Mishnah in the book of Negaim. What happens when the Kohen comes and a person spoke Lashon Hara and they now get a skin blemish, right? Yeah. And they have to know now, so what color means they're pure, what color is impure, when do you send them out of a camp? There's a whole Mishnah about this. So it says if their color changed from the color of a Jew. So the Mishnah says, what is the color of a Jew? So it says in the Mishnah, the color of a Jew is like the color of the bark of a cedar tree. And it says, well, the Ethiopians have more of a Jewish color than you have, than I have. That's what Shlomo Avinu said. He's an Ashkenazi Jew, than I have. So Jews don't have a color, but if we have a color, you're the wrong color, not them.
Right.
And this man was so embarrassed he couldn't even speak. Sometimes you have to tell a person that this is the way that it is. It's just the way that it is. It is a race. It boils down to a racist ideology that is underlying in it's not healthy. It comes from an inferiority complex. Because we've been persecuted throughout our history, now we finally get the chance to persecute back. You fool, who are you persecuting? You're not going now to downtown Berlin and persecuting the grandchildren of Nazis. You're persecuting people that are coming to be Jewish. Yeah. They're our brothers and sisters. They've gone through a due process that Hashem put forth in the Torah on what it means to become Jewish. So he says, Maran continues, you must give him a Brit Milah immediately in front of the Beit Din. Umamtinin lo ad shitrapeh, and you wait for him until he heals. Refuah shlema, complete healing.
In front of the Beit Din. I mean, it isn't, because it's an adult, isn't there a certain amount of privacy?
He has to have a Brit Milah done in front of the Beit Din.
I mean, without covering or anything?
They have to be able to see the Brit Milah done to him. This is, absolutely.
because it's a mitzvah, I guess the issues of tzniut are not so.
This is not right. It's like going to a doctor. The same way a person wouldn't be. The Bedin sees this a lot. It happens a lot. You'll see that there are when women have to convert, and then you go to the mikvah. And how does that work with the dayanim? We're going to talk about that when we get there. But in this situation, they have to be there, but they're not allowed to see her.
Right.
But they have to see her.
So they have to hear it.
They can hear. Hearing is not enough. If you have the following scenario, if you have a man and a woman go behind, one's holding a ring. The man's holding a ring, and he goes behind the wall. Let's say he goes behind this mechitza, and you hear him say, "Harayat mikudeshen li b'davad zo gadad Moshe v'Yisrael." You hear him say this, and then he comes out of the ring, the wall, smiling, and she comes out with the ring on her finger. What can you assume?
Set up.
They got married. He did the chuppah ceremony there.
It would not be kosher though.
But because you only heard it and you didn't see it, they're not married according to Jewish law. Hearing is not enough. It has to be with vision, with sight.
Yeah, she could have had her own ring in her pocket, and you didn't see it.
It could be 101 things, but here we're saying that in order for someone to declare a testimony on something, they must be able to see it with their eyes. Seeing is believing according to Jewish law. And the same thing with the Brit Milah.
So how much?
And he's not a witness in the Jewish court.
So how much do they see when there is a woman involved and the rabbi has to be there? How much?
By the mikvah?
Yeah.
So we're going to see what he sees. Suffice to say that he only sees her head. He can't see her anything else from her. And it's not just one rabbi; it has to be 3 rabbis. And you should know after what happened recently in Washington D.C. And I actually spoke to Rav Peretz about this recently. It was also about conversion.
It was. Okay.
Yeah, sure.
And just the monthly mikvah.
No, also he actually the people he manipulated the most were converts.
Yeah, he was teaching them.
This problem happened once before. Not about a corrupt rabbi, but about women who were uncomfortable going to the mikvah in front of him, or situations where men simply lived in a country where such a thing was not possible. Imagine if it was a country where men were not allowed to enter the woman's bathing house and whatever. So there were. Rav Uziel suggests that there could be a leniency in which you could send 3 women as messengers of the Beit Din to watch her go in, but that would only be a b'diavad conversion. It would be a second-class conversion.
And what does that mean in reality?
In reality, it means she's Jewish, but we would prefer not to do it that way.
It's not ideal.
It's not an ideal situation.
Ideal, but
some would say that the situation, though, was not ideal in the first place. When I sat with Rabbi Peretz was very bothered by this whole story. And he said, I have to understand the people, but also you can't, because of one crooked person, you can't, invalidate all the rabbis and the Jewish people as being perverts. You can't say that they're all... But there's a balance. We'll talk about it.
When you have a Chilul Hashem, unfortunately, it goes way beyond the one person.
Absolutely. So we're going to talk. We're going to get to a woman in the mikvah. We're going to talk about what she does. It's a very good question, and it's a discussion we're going to have. We have time till Shavuot. So you wait until he has their flash lema. The Ramban, Rabbi Moshe ben Nachman says, I don't understand the order. Why first the Brit Milah and then mikvah? Why not do it the other way around and get it done in one day? First he'll go to the mikvah, he'll come out, then he'll have his Brit Milah, and then he's Jewish. Instead of making him wait maybe a week in between the Brit Milah and the mikvah, and you're not sure to stand this, why make him go to... Why is the order the way it is?
Second thoughts?
Very good. Very good. The Ramban suggests that if he goes to the mikveh, then he's already Jewish. And then he might hesitate about having a Brit Milah. That's a big deal. If he got through the hurdle of having a Brit Milah, dipping in a swimming pool is not a big deal.
Yeah.
And we have to be practical about human nature. He says we have to put the bigger hurdle to cross first, and then the smaller one. If we switch it around, it's kosher, but the ideal situation is to do it this way.
That's more than second doubt if you're worried about getting slipped after the fact. That's more like deadly fear.
Very well. So that's an even better. So you prove on the Ramban's point.
Yes.
Some cases, he need Brit Milah.
Yeah, like a real Brit Milah. Sure.
Really, medically,
Sure.
he need it.
Sure.
That case, it is not
Definitely
hard.
the guy is going to to have second thoughts or run for
He
his
doesn't
life.
have second thought. He'll do it because he needs it.
So we wait for the Brit Milah to heal. ואחר כך מטבילים אותו, טבילה הוגנת. He goes to the mikvah, not like stam a guy who goes to the mikvah, but a real, like a woman when she goes to the mikvah. All the halachot. Below chatzitza, there cannot be anything on his body that causes a separation between him and the water. The laws of a woman going to the mikvah are very strict. If it's her body, how she goes into the water, if her eyes are closed, how tightly they're closed, nail polish, makeup, all kinds of things in between her teeth, whatever it is, there are a lot of halachot. Dirt, tattoos, whatever people are going through there. All kinds of things that apply. These things apply also here. That person who's converting, he is going to the mikveh in the same way. The Ramah brings down something crazy. It's something so crazy that I haven't even heard of an Ashkenazi Beit Din that does this. We definitely don't. We don't even allow people to consider doing this. Even if the convert would say, I want to do it, we don't let him do it. But the Ramah does bring down the following. V'yesh omrim, some say, Shigalech sa'arotav, that he has to shave all the hair in his body. Head to toe.
This is an opinion?
It's an opinion brought down in the name of the Rif and the Rosh.
And the head and the beard too? Or just the body?
Everything. The whole head to toes.
Well, but not for women though, just for men.
It's interesting. It doesn't mention about women, but probably he would apply this to women also.
There wouldn't be many takers.
Oh, wait. V'tol tziponei yadav v'raglav kodem tvilah, and they also have to cut their fingernails and toenails before the tvilah. Rama isn't saying to do this because of chatzitza. He's not saying because the hair separates between the water and the person. That doesn't. There is in the Torah the process of the one who comes back to the camp, the one who burns his clothing, and part of that process is completely shaving the body, ridding of everything that was before, and coming in clean, so to speak.
Sarat.
Yeah, we don't. The understanding here is that this definitely would scare away even the holiest of converts.
And this happened with the Levium also, of course.
Right, this happened in many places. In Tanakh, you'll find this concept.
But you're born with hair.
Depends who you are.
Mostly.
Right, okay.
You said
There's a rebirth process of coming back, and the Torah involves very often the shaving of one's body completely. And we hold this. I'll read to you Rav Peretz's words. L'maaseh lo nahagim chumah zo. Practically, we do not apply this chumah. V'chen nachon v'raui, and it's proper not to do it. It's not only proper, it's not only okay not to do it. It's proper not to do it. Lo lehakshot alehem likanes dat Yisrael. You cannot make it any more difficult than it already is to join the Jewish people. That's what Rav Peretz writes.
Additional barrier.
And it's not necessary, so we don't do it. The Ramah doesn't even bring this down as a halacha. He brings it down as there is one who says, meaning even the Ramah might have not been convinced about it. He's just quoting it as another opinion that he's putting on it. So they have to go to a mikvah, like a woman. It has to be a kosher mikvah. It can't be a swimming pool or something, or it has to be a real mikvah. It could be the ocean or something, but a real mikvah is the preferable form. He has to have his body cleansed, not shaving, but cleansed. Cutting fingernails. For a lady, and fingernails, toenails, it's not a halacha. It's not a halacha. It's a custom the Jewish women have taken upon themselves. It's not obligatory.
But no polish though.
Even nail polish. Many poskim have allowed nail polish. Especially nail polish that lasts more than a day or two. Now, we try, at least when a person converts the first time, we try to, let's get rid of the nail polish. So once in a lifetime conversion, immersion in the mikveh. Also, when ladies go to the mikveh, the proper thing is to remove nail polish, but there are ladies that they don't want to. They're just, this is their thing, and it's much better for them to go to the mikveh with nail polish than to just skip on going to the mikveh at all. There are calculations that have to be made.
But like you're saying, it's not halacha, that's just custom.
It's more than a custom. It's trying to take in more opinions into consideration. We want to make the most kosher. Every time someone goes to the mikveh, it's a pretty big deal. Meaning here, someone is going from being not Jewish, that I can't even marry them, to being so Jewish that I can have children with them. And that process, you want to make it as according to all the opinions as possible. The same thing with the woman. She goes from a situation where if I will touch her, I'm violating terrible biblical prohibitions, to the same moment she comes out of the mikveh, I have an obligation to be with her. That process you want to make sure that it's not like just going to the swimming pool in the morning. It's a real halachic situation which we're changing a person, we're changing a reality, and in those situations we try to be as strict as we can, obviously within reason, but as strict as we can, and as much as they're willing and able to do, in order to make it as kosher as possible. If it was up to me, I would wish one day to have a mikveh that would follow halacha. What do I mean follow halacha? That it would be kosher, it would follow the laws of kashrut, the person in there would make sure, but without making people afraid of going to the mikveh. There are a lot of problems that happen in mikvah. A lot of ladies that run the mikvah. There are some very good ones. And in San Diego, there's a lady that I send people to. She's a big tzaddiket. She really, almost everyone that I've sent to keeps going back to her. But there are some ladies that come and someone's looking at them, and someone's inspecting them. So, you know why there's another lady in the mikvah? Do you know what her job is?
Watch the other one.
To make sure she...
What?
To watch the first one do it.
Okay, no, what's her job?
To make sure she's completely
to make sure that her hair goes under the water. Because the lady under the water can't make sure that her hair went under the water.
Yeah, okay.
That's the only reason this lady's there.
Oh, okay.
Nothing else. She serves no other purpose. She's not allowed to say another word. She can't give criticism. She can't tell people what halakha she needs to follow. That's not her job.
So when a lady goes into mikvah, she can't hold the head like this and then go underneath and keep
Do
it
they?
down?
Yeah. Do they hang on to their hair?
At a certain point, she'd have to let go, to let it be free. In which case, she'd
It might go to the top.
again. It's a stringency that we're taking upon ourselves. But that's all this lady's there to do. And suddenly, these ladies feel like they're the chief rebbitzin of the mikvah. Like they have all kinds of laws. They might as well put out a book. They already. Nobody asks you any questions. Every lady comes. She has her own rabbi. She has her own rebbitzin. She has her own traditions that from her families. You don't have to get involved. Okay. Ushlosha. Shlosha. There are three people. Rama adds in Talmidei Chachamim. They have to be Torah scholars. Maran doesn't say that. Maran just says three. Omdim al gabav, you have three Torah scholars that are standing over him while he's in the mikveh. And now he goes into the mikveh. This is after his brit milah. The order is he came to the Beit Din and we push him away with some questions. Why did you come to convert? We notify him all kinds of things. That stage is called Kabbalat Mitzvot. He's in public accepting the mitzvot. I'm accepting Judaism upon myself. We do a brit milah to him right away. We wait for him to heal. Now he's coming back to the mikveh in front of three judges. He goes into the water. And the judges again, they do a second time. Modi'im oto miktzat mitzvot kalot. Umiktzat mitzvot chamorot pam shniya. They tell him the same things they did before about the smaller mitzvot, the bigger mitzvot. They repeat the entire dialogue a second time. V'hu omed b'mayim, and this is all while he's standing inside the water. V'im hayta isha. The interesting thing is, how does he now talk? You have to understand, he's naked in the mikveh. How does he say Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad?
Underwater? Yeah.
Underwater is a covering.
Very good.
It should be like clothing, but you probably have to put a kippah.
He has to put a head covering on. When he makes the bracha in the mikveh, the best thing for him to do is actually to go out of the water and to put on his pants. At least his pants. That way he's not completely naked, and then he makes the bracha of the mikveh.
Oh.
I don't understand that because I thought water is enough of a covering.
For a woman, not for a man. We have a different body structure.
I got you.
And we say that a woman, the water is enough to separate between her mind and her erva. But it's a different anatomy.
But of course, just putting on pants, you're still uncovered. Normally, you would not say Shema with your shirt off.
Right. Okay. So you could put on maybe a better clothing. But what I'm sharing here is something interesting. The only time in the world we make a blessing after we do a mitzvah is when a convert goes to the mikvah. He first goes into the mikvah, and then he makes the blessing. It's the only time in Jewish law.
He comes out of the water.
Out of the water, where a person goes does the mitzvah first, and then makes the blessing. Why does he have to do it this way?
Because he's not Jewish.
Very good. He's not Jewish yet to make a blessing. How could he first say, "You commanded me, you sanctified me with your mitzvot"? Nobody sanctified you. You're not Jewish yet.
Okay.
So then he can't do that and go into the water. But it's very important when we do that to tell the ladies, tell the men, this is the only time you're ever going to do it this way. From here on out, you're always going to make the blessing first. And I know that women have the custom to make a blessing after they go to the mikveh. It's the same thing as Shabbat candles. It's the same thing as washing your hands. It's incorrect. There's no other place in Halacha. There's no other place in Halacha where you make a blessing after you do the mitzvah, period. And even if someone has such a custom, I want to tell you something. There's a lot of value in life when you're consistent. When you're consistent in life, it's a good thing. It's a good character trait to have in the first place.
Consistently wrong.
I didn't say that. but at least you won't be confused about what you are. You know you're always wrong. There's value. When a person's raising their children and say, we keep kosher, but when we go to our friend's house, we don't keep kosher. So the message the kid gets is, there's times where I don't have to keep kosher. Their chances are going to keep less kosher than you do. It's just the way, consistency is important. You want that when someone pushes you up against the wall and they say, why is it that every other mitzvah you make a blessing first and then you do the mitzvah, but by washing your hands, you first wash your hands and then you make the blessing? You want to be able to smile and say, no, we make the blessing and then we wash our hands. And then you left them without any questions. You want to be able to say that.
So what is the answer if you do wash your hands, if you do say the blessing after you wash your hands? What is the rationalization?
The rationalization actually comes from this halakha. The thinking is, maybe my hands are dirty. While my hands are dirty, I'm like the convert who's not yet Jewish, meaning I can't make a blessing yet. And therefore I first have to wash my hands and then make the blessing.
Yeah.
That's the rationale.
That's the rationale for
Yes.
that. Then how about after the Shabbat candles?
The same thing. The same thing they're saying there is, if I make the blessing before, I've already accepted Shabbat on myself. And if I've already accepted Shabbat on myself, I'm no longer able to light candles because Shabbat begun. In which case, Chazal were fools because they didn't know that once you make the blessing, Shabbat starts.
So light the candles
But
first
you
and
told
say
us
the blessing.
you told us that the blessings are done before the action.
Yes.
And for Shabbat, the action of lighting candles is for light in the house, not to start Shabbat.
Very good. Meaning,
So it's the blessing.
Shulchan Aruch makes it very clear that you are not accepting Shabbat when you light candles.
Right.
A woman can light candles and keep on cooking for Shabbat. She can light candles an hour before Shabbat.
So in the morning when you get up and to dime, you do that before you wash, before you pour on your
Very good. Your hands have to be clean,
Yeah.
but you make the blessing first. Again, we're talking here about situations that can be solved. I can make sure that my hands are clean before I do Netilat Yadayim. I can make sure I say, I am not accepting Shabbat when I make the blessing. You can do that with your mouth. The only one who cannot do anything is the convert. He right now is not Jewish. He can't say, right now I'm Jewish enough to make a blessing. He can't, and therefore this is the only situation in Halacha in which he makes a blessing afterwards. Halacha is very logical. Once he comes out of the water of the mikveh, right away. He can't wait even. Yeah.
You talk about a very simple conversion process, but these days, and probably to some degree in the old times also, there was an educational chinuch process. And a particular example I'm interested is when someone I know asked the rabbi who was going to convert her a philosophical question about Judaism, and the rabbi wrote back saying, "Dear so-and-so, the Torah either is or is not the will of the Creator. Choose." Is that asking too much of a convert?
Yes and no. This would be a very big argument, but like Rabbi Yonatan Halevy would say, you're coming to convert. No one asked you to. If you're going to, so you have to do it on our terms. I mean, that's a very simple...
What do you mean no one asked you to? Half of them were because they want to get married and now
Well,
they
that's a whole
want to.
other-
No, meaning we're not forcing you. We're not forcing you to come to Bedin. We're not putting a gun to your head, say convert or else. Meaning you are making this choice, so make the choice wholeheartedly as a Jew. Yes, so there is that element to it. But there's also the other element of, we're not trying to make this overly difficult. If I can walk a person through a process, if I can explain to them something, why not? You know, we're very, 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 very open to this fact that non-Jews should be studying a lot before they convert. Have you ever thought for a moment that there's a prohibition of non-Jews studying Torah?
Yeah, I was aware of that, yeah.
There is such a prohibition.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Of course. You can't teach a non-Jew Torah. In our desire to be strict in one area, we're being lenient in another area.
But I thought you told us that there's something about like you can't teach it to Muslims, but there's like nothing to discuss. But then you said like with Christians you could because there's some.
Look, the Rambam has such a letter. The Rambam says that by the Christians we could teach and the Muslims we don't.
So is it not only about teaching, it's about
How about the
debate?
Seventh-day
It's about
Adventists?
teaching, is it?
The Rambam believed that the Christians believe in the same books that we believe in. And if we could only show them how to read it properly, they would change their mind. Meaning, they believe in the Torah. And if we show them, listen, you're just mistranslating the Torah, you're misunderstanding the Torah, they would very quickly drop everything else. The Rambam felt that the Muslims, their ideology comes from a completely different place. And he felt that it was, you have to start from scratch, and there's so much deep programming to do that it almost wasn't worth it.
And
That was the
Quran
Rambam's sentiment. It's not a halacha. It's his feeling. He writes this in a letter, not in a code of law.
So what's more similar is harder to discern in terms of teaching.
Very good.
Because Islam is so similar that it's actually farther away.
Yes, that's true. There is
They had the
truth
same
to that.
prophets, but they turned the story around. It was Ishmael for the Akedah, not Yaakov. But
There is truth to that. You should know that sometimes the hardest people for me to teach the laws of lighting Shabbat candles to are people who are religious. Because they
Set in their way.
they're saying, and the ways are very similar. So I can't say forget about it's not like it's too close a little bit. There's truth to that. Now let's to the bottom line of teaching non-Jews Torah. Non-Jews are allowed to study Torah. Anything that's relevant to a non-Jew's life, growth, ethics, morals, musar. There's a lot in the Torah that's relevant to everybody. That's allowed to be taught to the non. There's a number of opinions we're going to go through when we get to this part. But our parents' bottom line is, don't be too strict about the world not studying Torah. It's bad enough we have a lot of people that don't study Torah. If there's somebody who wants to study Torah, then guide them away from the parts that are irrelevant, but towards the things that are. There's enough that needs to be taught. I want to just finish this halacha with you. So he's in the mikveh. Now what if it's a lady? V'im hayta isha. If she was a lady, nashim moshivot ota b'mayim. The ladies have to come and put her in the water. The judges are waiting outside. Ad savara, until the water reaches her neck. V'adayanim b'chutz, and the judges are outside. And from outside, umodi'in ota miktzad mitzvot kalot v'chamurot, and they tell her again the mitzvot, the small mitzvot, the big mitzvot. They do the same thing. They speak with her from outside of the mikveh. V'hi yoshevet b'mayim, and she's in the water. V'achar, and afterwards they come inside. Tovelet bifnehem, she immerses in the mikveh in front of them. Vehem, meaning they see her head. Imagine over the mikveh wall, like a swimming pool. And they watch her head go into the water. Hem machzirim pnehem, they turn their backs to her. V'yotzim, and they walk out. Kedei shelo yiru ta k'shta'aleh me'amayim, so they should not see her when she comes out of the water. V'yivarech al hatvila achar she'yaleh min hamayim, and they should make a blessing after they come out of the water. V'kevan shetaval harei hu k'Yisrael, and once he goes to the mikveh, he's like a Jew in every regard. She'im chazar l'suro, that even if he goes back to worshipping idols, harei hu k'Yisrael mumar, he's like a Jew who became an idol worshipper. She'im kidesh kidushav kidushin. I like that sentence. She'im kidesh kidushav kidushin. That if he marries somebody, it's chal, meaning they're married. Like any other Jew that's a violator of Torah mitzvah. You can't go back. There's no reversal after this point. There's no return.
So who turns their back on the person?
The judges. The judges. Now let me tell you,
That's on a man and a woman both, or
only on a woman.
But the women attendant needs to stay there, right? She's never alone. The woman's never alone.
The woman's not alone. She comes out and makes a blessing. There doesn't have to be a woman attendant, but she's there, I guess, to make sure her hair goes under the water like everywhere else. In this case, there are 3 options of what can really happen. 4, if you'd like. There's this basic option, which is they just see her head go into the water, come back up. That's what was done forever and ever and ever. The way Harav Peretz does it, and in his rabbinic court, is she wears a very, very roomy robe. Imagine a large, spacious robe. A humongous robe. She gets extra, extra, extra large.
She put another person in
And
there.
she wears it in the mikveh.
Oh, okay.
Because so long as water is touching all over her body and there's no cloth pressed up against her body, she's she's covered, and she's in the water. And she goes to the mikveh wearing this robe. And that way she doesn't have to fear about anybody seeing her undressed. This is just like them seeing her in a robe anywhere else. Some dayanim have a custom that they actually cover the entire mikveh with a sheet. Imagine like a blue sheet or a black sheet, and they put a hole in the middle, and she sticks her head up in the middle. That way she can comfortably talk to them. Her head is out, but they cannot see the water, they cannot see her, they cannot see the mikveh. Not at all. And there's the fourth option of Rav Uziel, which is, like I told you, it's the only after the fact option. We prefer not to do this, but there is an option of which the Beit Din appoints 3 women to go into the mikveh on their behalf and to watch her immerse and report back to them that she did the mikveh, meaning they're the messengers of the Beit Din. This has been done before, and it's something that's been suggested in recent times, again in light of the events that we spoke about before. I'm not saying what we should and should not do. I know that what we feel the most comfortable with in our parents' circles is this robe. And from experience, the ladies who do it really don't have a problem with wearing this robe. They feel decent enough and also in the mikveh enough to solve that problem.
So let me guess, there's political fighting amongst different rabbis and which one does which. And
absolutely. So when this thing came up about what do you do, there were some rabbis that were quick to say, listen, let's not ruin the whole conversion process. Let's allow ladies who really need to go with these 3 ladies into the mikveh. No, that's a reform thing. That's debate. It's always the first thing. It's a reform. Everything is reform. As if it's like always a bad thing to be so reformed. That came up. And I'll tell you the truth. The truth is that then they said, but Rav Uziel wrote this. And you know what the answer was? Who's Rav Uziel? Who is Rav Uziel? Who are you?
Right.
Who are you? What are you? You're nobody living in 2016 asking who's Rav Uziel? The chief rabbi of the whole state of Israel. The chief rabbi of the land, the chief rabbi of everybody. You can say he's not my rabbi, but who is he? His opinion counts for something. Yeah. Someone can follow this opinion. If he held it was kosher, for sure you could hold it was kosher. And it's not an ideal situation. We're talking about an unideal situation. We're talking about a situation where women are afraid of the rabbis. They're afraid of the dinim. They're afraid of that's not an ideal situation.
They fought for it. I have an interesting question because they discuss hermaphrodism in the Talmud. In light of certain events today, could a hermaphrodite convert?
Depends how you would define a hermaphrodite.
Well, someone with signs of both male and female.
Physical
sex.
signs.
Yeah.
Biologically.
It's an interesting question. I'm going to tell the truth. It's not in the Shulchan Aruch. This question, I didn't see it brought up in Shulchan Aruch. I'm sure it's brought up somewhere, the Gemara somewhere. I'm happy to look into it.
Because there are certain laws that apply
to both, to either. Yeah, I'm happy to look into it for you.
Because even these days with gendering and so forth.
Well, that's not necessarily the same thing as a hermaphrodite.
Right.
Different. This is a biological thing.
What? One is biological, one is
attitude. No,
I'm stepping on eggshells. I'm not sure where to go, but it's not the same thing.
I understand.
It could be they have similarities, but not necessarily the same thing.
He wants to know this Supreme Court, how they ruled it in Israel.
I don't know how they ruled it in Israel. But the bottom line, what you saw so far, at this point, here ends the conversion process. One halacha in the Shulchan Aruch.
That's it.
One.
We just covered the whole thing.
You just finished. Now, obviously, there's more. How do you do? What do you ask? What if he's this kind of non-Jew? What if he's a child? What if they're married? What if they have children? Okay, we're going to deal with the details from here on in. You just finished the process of conversion. So at this point, he comes out of the mikveh and he makes a shechianu. It's the first time in his life he's Jewish. It's a big deal. And then we say beautiful things to him. There's a whole paragraph I'll read to you next time. What do we tell him? How praiseworthy are you? How good you are? Everything we told you before, forget about it. Everything we told you was only to increase your merits. It was only to make you get more, so that you could tell Hashem, even with all those bad things, I still said yes. It's almost an apology. We're almost making up. How many Bedins are doing this? I don't know. I don't have a statistic on the street. But the attitude that I'm feeling is that it's not happening so much.
It's like begrudging almost.
This is where at this point we're supposed to embrace him, to dance with him. There are people who convert to Judaism. They're afraid to tell people they converted. They don't want to be a convert. They don't even know which day of the week they went to. Suddenly they come to Beit Knesset and they're Jewish. They didn't even tell you. We hold that he has to make a celebration. They should bring a Talmid Chacham. There should be speeches. It should be like a wedding.
Yeah.
It's the happiest day of his life. We as a community should celebrate it. You make a Shechianu. He has to put on Yom Tov clothing.
Makes sense.
It's an incredible thing.
Yeah, it is.
And that's the way he ends the process of being welcomed into the Jewish people with open arms. That's the hope. That's the
And
dream.
after this, if male, they can then now. Is it bar mitzvah necessary or optional?
Very good. In that, we're going to have a section here. I don't know if we're going to have time to Shabbat. We're going to have a section here about that day. That day he already has mitzvot. Meaning, let's say he converts at 3 o'clock in the afternoon.
Yeah.
And the sun sets at 5. He has to put on tefillin very quickly. He has to make the morning blessings that he
Yes,
didn't
I
make because
understand
already
that.
now he's Jewish. I mean, everything starts the moment he comes out of that mikveh. There's no waiting. There's no like I'll start tomorrow morning. Now he's Jewish.
So the first thing you have to do is mincha then.
Mincha with tefillin.
Yeah.
Let's pray. This is a lot of things. We're going to get into this. B'ezrat Hashem. All right, then we should have a beautiful evening. B'ezrat Hashem. I'm enjoying learning this with you guys. I have to tell you. Oh, Hashem.
Interesting.